Dave, thank you for that. More changes to the Toronto District School Board announcing now that virtual schools for elementary students will begin next Thursday. That is 2 days than the original scheduled start date. So the TDSB says the large number of students opting to learn online has caused the delay. More than 66,000 elementary students are enrolled in 4 virtual schools, which pools students from across the city. The TDSB also previously announced a 2-day delay for all high school students learning both in person and online, now also scheduled to start next Thursday. All right, let's get you the latest when it comes to the province. Premier Ford is vowing to tackle the long list of surgeries that were canceled during the pandemic, even suggesting that surgeons work on the weekends to help clear up all of that backlog. Now, he says some 180,000 surgeries postponed so that hospitals could deal with COVID surges, which never actually materialized. The Premier also taking aim at the federal government's 14-day quarantine act for people traveling into Ontario from outside of Canada, calling their system broken. He says Ontario police have found over 600 people who violated the act, but no federal charges were laid.
You know, we can't have our police running around and seeing people breaking quarantine and nothing happens to them, a slap on the wrist. It turns into be a joke.
But Canada's Health Minister, Patty Hajdu, says the Premier is misinformed and that OPP can, in fact, lay charges on quarantine violators. So why the confusion? I'll actually be asking Minister Hajdu about that. She will be joining me live this morning at 7 a.m. She is also expected to make a federal funding announcement to help Toronto in our fight against the virus. All of that is coming up in the next hour. Well, the Premier also looking ahead to October and admitting that COVID-19 might scare off Halloween trick-or-treating.
You know, we got to take care of the kids. That's a priority. Let's play it by ear and see what happens over the next month and then the next month and a half for Halloween. But just makes me nervous, kids going door to door with us.
Ford says he'll want to discuss the issue with the province's health experts, but says he'd prefer parents keep their kids home instead of going trick-or-treating. All right, in preparation for a possible second wave, Toronto Fire Chief Matthew Pegg will be returning to lead the city's COVID-19 response program on a full-time basis. You may remember Pegg was appointed to lead the response at the beginning of the pandemic as the general manager of emergency management, but returned to fire chief to his job in June. Now, Pegg returning to coordinate the COVID response to prepare for a case of a second wave if it arrives this fall and winter. The city's Emergency Operations Center has been operating at a Level 3 response since March, which is the highest possible level. Let's get to our streets now. Police investigating a broad daylight murder that happened in a parking lot in a Walmart in the city's West End. This shooting, it happened just before 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon in the parking lot on St. Clair, just west of Runnymede. Witnesses reported hearing 2 people arguing before several shots were fired. The male victim was pronounced dead at the scene. Police are looking for a male suspect who drove away in a white SUV. Police, as a result of this, taping off this lot for several hours, which prevented vehicles from leaving, but that store remained open. The mother who survived the mass shooting of her family last Friday in Oshawa says her family devastated by their loss, but also thankful for the support that they have received. Loretta Traynor was wounded in the attack in which her husband Chris and 3 of their children were shot dead. In her first statement issued through the Durham Regional Police Service, she says her family is profoundly grateful to supporters, first responders, and the medical workers aiding her recovery. The couple's 4th child was not at home at the time of the attack and is now with his mother. Police say the attacker, 48-year-old Mitchell Lapa of Winnipeg, was a relative of the family and an uninvited person at the home on Park Lane Avenue. Well, the wildfires on the west coast of the U.S. have now claimed at least 2 lives, and we want to show you some dramatic video here of these fires burning near Portland, Oregon. There are reports that a 12-year-old boy and his grandmother died while trying to flee in their family car about 110 kilometers south of Portland. His mother suffering serious burns. There are now dozens of wildfires that are sweeping across the state, fanned by hot, dry winds. More than 470,000 acres have burned and 500,000 people told to flee. The state's governor says some towns have been substantially destroyed. There are also 28 fires burning right now across California. Well, today marks the 19th anniversary of the September 11th attacks back in 2001. Due to the pandemic, the traditional way that the victims were remembered at the memorial in New York has been changed. Instead of a ceremony with families of the victims reading out the victims' names, the museum will play a pre-recorded reading and stream it to their website this morning. The Twin Towers and surrounding buildings were destroyed by al-Qaeda hijackers on this date in 2001, killing 2,753 people. A plane also crashed into the Pentagon, and a fourth plane crashing in Pennsylvania when the hijackers were stopped by passengers. In total, nearly 3,000 people were killed.